Okay, thank you, Claire, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to this presentation. So basically, the presentation is going to be looking at three areas. So it's dual code theory, cognitive load theory, and how graphic organisers and diagrams can be used to support anybody involved in learning about navigating to be proficient navigators. So Claire's introduced me in there, so I'm just going to be looking at the top section. So my role in education, in further education, was to provide students with opportunities to have experiences in a range of adventure activities, which included orienteering, challenge walking, expeditions to Snowdonia, etc. And also I kind of coordinated water-based adventure activities. Where we use the National Water Sports Centre, which is pretty local to where the college I work at. Okay, so dual coding theory. So Pavera in 1971 kind of looked at this. It took him 20 odd years to get it fully working, so to speak, as a theory. And although it's 1991, dual coding theory is only recently kind of been involved with further education, obviously to make sure that learning and teaching is to a reasonable standard. And basically, it's about recall and recognition and enhancing the information in a variety of methods. And in this case, it's visual and in a verbal form. So closely linked to this is a cognitive load theory, devised by John Speller, 1988. And he was looking at how working memory is used and what is long-term memory. So basically, working memory holds information for short periods of time and can be overloaded at times if there's too much information. A long-term memory has an endless capacity for storage, and it's in the back of our mind, and so it helps working memory to retrieve information that's stored in the depths of our mind. And also it reinforces the visual verbal information, and it's there to enhance recall for students. So linking the two, so dual code theory and cognitive load theory, are graphic organisers. And using these helps the students to get the most out of their learning, and also to help with recall, because these diagrams will help break down areas, and with the labels it will give a kind of instant recognition and a recall to help the students when they're doing navigation activities. So the background image of the title slide is abstract painting. So what do you see? And to some people, a map is an abstraction. And here, there could be a cognitive overload, and our working memory is thinking, well, what the heck's going on here? And so you can see various images, and it's highly kind of subjective. And depending on your viewpoint, you will see a number of kind of images that might stick out. For example, the pink kind of face in the middle. What is that? Is that a dog? Is that a fish? And then moving to the right-hand side, is that a whale? Is that a smiling face, etc.? So our interpretation there for this abstract is dependent on our long-term memory. You know, what does it represent, and then we're trying to make sense of it with our working memory. And as basically it can cause a map is an abstract, and it can cause cognitive overload as we try and make sense of what we see. And if we overload our working memory, it can easily exceed its capacity. And working memory is just a temporary storage while we performing cognitive tasks. So what you see in the next set of images. So again, what you see is that abstract painting, but this time you will see different colours. So there's a constant change. And when we're navigating, there could be a constant change. Yeah. For example, what if you suddenly come to a footpath that's closed? It's on your route, it's on your recce. How are we going to kind of sort that one out? And here we have a map. It's an Ordnance Survey map. And if you're familiar with maps, you know that this isn't an abstract image, but for some people, it could be viewed as an abstract image. So here, if you know about OS maps, without looking at the 1 to 50K in the top right-hand corner, you would have come to that knowledge because the rights of way are in red, so that signifies a 1 to 50,000 map. And in your long-term memory, if you've memorized the signs and symbols, then you won't have to revert to what Ordnance Survey call conventional signs. You won't have a look at the margin information to think, oh, hang on a minute, what sign's this? And so it's there in our long-term memory, and when we bring it forward to a working memory, we're not going to be overloading it. Now, in the modern day, planning a route is kind of omitted because there's lots of apps out there, and you just click on an app and you probably get something like this. A route, and this is one that I've kind of planned because in March this year, it'd be my 40th anniversary of leading my first walk for the Sherwood Group of the Long Distance Walk Association, and it was in this area. And so the remit was it has to be around about 15 miles because the Long Distance Walk Association, it's a bit of the walks need to be a longer distance. So when go back to the first slide, how do we sort out a route if we haven't got a basis to learn from? And so, with my experience, I've devised this route. But some people, instead of looking at it as a map, they might see this red line as an abstraction, and they might see things in there that's not related to map reading. Like, this is just a walk that's been plotted on OS, on the OS Maps app, the desktop. And some people might see a face on the right-hand side, and they might see a representation of a wing on the top left. And so it's that understanding. This isn't an abstract image. This is a route that can be used. And OS Maps, the app, you can download this and have it accessible for members of the public. Members of the public come in, download the GPX file, and away they go. Also, OS Maps have a different systems here. This is the 3D image of part of the route. Is that going to help with the map reading? And also, you can have an image where it's kind of live and it shows the lie of the land in real terms, not as a kind of map, but as another visual. Could that help with navigating the map? And another way, some of you might recognise this. I was at Chester and I went around the walls of the city and I took images, and on the iPhone, these images can be stored, and if you scroll, click and see other images, you can see a map plotted out. So would that be a way to improve navigation? I know that Ramblers Routes is another one of these apps that you can use to go around a particular ramble, and they use images to support navigation. And here is various images taken at various parts of the walled city of Chester. Some of those images, like in the centre, you've got 3 images. That's Chester Cathedral. That's not part of the route, but you could go and take pictures specifically to support a navigation. And this is the kind of graphic organizer. So it's another way of kind of supporting navigation. And it won't take too long to realise that this is Bath, and we've got a You Are Here map. So this is from Bath. I took a picture there. But if you're using a live app and a GPX file, you've got a continuous You Are Here button. So every time you stop, you've got an arrow saying You Are Here. And that's another way to support navigating is using technology, but it kind of goes straight into the route without one being able to plan it. So if map interpretation can cause cognitive overload, what about being in a terrain? So, most students you give them a map and they go, oh my goodness, with experience, I'm sorry, with some teaching, they can get to grips with it. But it's a very different proposition when you're in the terrain. So next slide. So how can you navigate this? What techniques, what graphic organisers, what can we use to mitigate against being lost in this kind of terrain? And anyone that would be confronted with this will think, well, how do I navigate this? And again, this is a kind of a cognitive overload. Our working memory, not familiar with this, our working memory is going to be working pretty fast, and it's going to quickly exceed capacity. However, that particular image is what can confront an orienteer, or what is a green or above course if they have to navigate off piste. So moving away from footpaths or anything like that, and you're going into territory where there's no footpaths. How do you navigate? So the next few slides are about cognitive overload, and this is from a business side rather than an education side. And they've looked at cognitive overload and been broken down into 4 areas, and we're going to be looking at those in a little bit of detail shortly. So multitasking, information overload, poor time management, probably typical for business, and complex tasks. And the image to the right, we've got this nice little footpath that leads us into a strip of woodland, and that won't necessarily generate any cognitive overload unless it's the wrong path. But looking at here, you're on the right path, it'd be easy to navigate. And if you've got an image like this and it kind of replicates where you are, then that's going to support your navigating ability and mitigate against cognitive overload. So multitasking. So on the image on the right-hand side, where the crop has been cut, that's where the footpath is. So regarding multitasking, one of the things is obviously keeping to the route that you planned. Yeah. If you are leading a group, that's a form of multitasking, because you've got responsibility for a group, and you've got to obviously make sure you're going in the right direction. You don't want to get lost and add miles to the route, because there's definitely going to be some complaints. Chatting to group members. So somebody could come up to you and start a conversation just at the time when your kind of point of reference is fast approaching, and you might miss it because it might be an obscure right turn or left turn or whatever, and you carry straight on. Maintaining safety. So whether you are leading a group or on your own, you need to be kind of safe. If you've got have you remembered to pack all the right kind of gear for the conditions ahead? And that leads on to watching the weather. What's the weather going to be like? And especially in the UK, it can change. I remember in some cases you could start off in the morning at 5 degrees C, and then in the afternoon it could be 20 degrees C, and that's like watching the weather. Have you got the right kind of gear? It could be the way around. Could get colder, wetter, and did you remember to pack the cagoule? All right, other one, information overload. So when we are navigating, observation, that's a key area. Eric Langmore, who wrote a couple of the mountain leadership training guides, he said that observation is fundamental to being able to navigate. All right, so map interpretation. So information from the map, and it doesn't matter if the map is an analog map, a paper map, or from a screen. It's still a map, and it still has basically the same kind of information. And then adding a compass into the mix. I know lots of people who don't use a compass, they don't ever need that, but I think it's extremely useful. But if you're not confident you're using it, that could give a bit of an overload if you want to try and navigate across a field and the footpath's disappeared because at the time it's ploughed up. Digital files, so the GPX file, you know, you need to be kind of constantly looking at it, and that could cause a cognitive overload. And even on a GPX file, you could kind of get lost. I was on a sandstone trail, and I was not concentrating. I was looking at the view, and I missed a turn off. And instead of going back, with experience, I realised that all I needed to do is I went ahead and saw that there was a footpath junction, and if I turned left, I went up this footpath up a bit of a steep hill, and I regained the sandstone trail. So for me, it wasn't quite an overload, but for somebody with inexperience, it would have been an overload. And then you might be reading a route card, reading a route description, have a look at a guidebook. And so cognitive overload, then you could be easily looking at multiple channels. An image there, you've got all these signs detailing where to go, but for me, there's only one sign I need to concentrate on, is which way am I going to go on the sandstone trail. And that kind of helps. It was a kind of illustration as such, and it provided that mitigation against cognitive overload, because I just follow the sign. Poor time management. So one of the things, and this is part of not being prepared. So Venture Smart UK, it's promoting preparedness. Okay. So not getting the right gear ready at that time, that can cause cognitive overload. You're pushing around, struggling with time management. Yeah. Procrastinating over important tasks. You know, you should be mat reading, but you want to look at the view, and you know, if you're not careful, you could lose your way. And then limited amount of time available. You know, the image on the right there, it's got my trusty Sunto Advisor watch, and I like using time as a navigating element. And the book in the background was given to me by my parents when I was 16 years old. And I've never done the Pennine Way in one go, and that's what, about 50 years since I've had that book. So one day, perhaps when I'm retired, I will get that book out and carry on and hopefully complete the Pennine Way. So the other thing, complex tasks. So process information from a variety of sources. Yeah, and you may not be adequately trained or educated in the type of navigation area that you're trying to find your way through, not having the right level of experience for the task. Yeah, you're trying to push on, but you might not be ready yet. And then lacking expertise. The expertise is usually having some kind of qualification to verify the fact that you are an expert in inverted commas. And I particularly like this sign. Okay, sat nav alert. So, you know, what 3 words? And you've got another 3 words there, no through road, and then access to homes and cemetery only. But there was a footpath through there, so it's okay. And I remember No Through Road was a publication by the AA back in the 70s, and that had route descriptions, but it also used images, not photographs, used images like paintings, sketches, etc., to help navigate. And there's a whole host of different routes, from a walk around Ludlow to a mountain ramble, getting up Great Gable. There we go. All right, so once a cognitive overload is known, can we in the innovation community look at our approaches and try and mitigate against this occurring? Right, so Rose and Shine, educational kind of specialist. So in 2020, he argues that teachers should present information in small steps, only proceed to the next step once the previous steps have been mastered, and then there needs to be sufficient practice at each step. And mastery requires a great deal of practice. So let's look at that again. And I think that we will be able to, if our teachers or trainers or coaches, and not just in navigation, that is that's a pretty good kind of blueprint for trying to get learning across from a teaching perspective. But is anything new about this? Because Spencer, who amongst other things was an educational philosopher, in 1861 he promoted the idea that teachers should. Okay, so we'll begin with a simple, move to the complex. So would it be okay to start navigation in the classroom, using like spatial awareness, and then moving into the playground? But then what next? Is moving into the playground doing a navigation exercise complex, or should then be after that be going to an orienteering, permanent orienteering course, and perhaps an area that students don't know, and then that will make it a bit more complex and help that understanding and move from the simple gradually to the complex. And the reason why I put that abstract image there, begin with concrete and then move to the abstract. So what do they really know when they are navigating, and how can we then put them into areas where again it's all known to them? And then finally, kind of reinforcing the others, from what is known and then gradually to what is unknown. So, the safety of the classroom, the playground, and then moving on to a permanent orienteering course, and then perhaps moving into other areas like perhaps a walk in the local environment or in the countryside environment, and then perhaps progress onto an expedition in the mountains. Right, so one of the ways that we can totally mitigate against cognitive overload is eliminate problem solving. But the only way you can do that is if you have experience and expertise, because with experience and expertise in your long-term memory, it's likely that you're going to have a solution for any problem. So if there's a problem, you don't really need to solve it too much. You can go back into the deep recesses of your mind, from long-term memory, bring it into your working memory. It's not going to exceed capacity because it's aided by that long-term memory, and that's it's going to take time to achieve that mastery. Okay, so from a pedagogy perspective, was a bit of a problem pronouncing that. So it's how do teachers teach in theory and practice? And the thing there is having 4 more words in a procedure can produce cognitive overload. Okay, so having 4 more words in a procedure can produce cognitive overload. One of the most popular kind of navigation teaching training aids are the 4+Ds of navigation. Okay, and the next slide brings up all the kind of Ds of navigation, right from the first one by Bjorn Kjellström from 1955. Bjorn Kjellström was one of the founders of the Silver Compass Company, and his book was about map and compass, and it was promoting orienteering in the United States of America. He actually went out there and eventually lived out there. And so we've got a number of Ds here, and each version has got their own different numbers of Ds, and some have even got danger in there, and more about that a little bit later. Okay, and some of them in a book, some of them come in a magazine, a YouTube video in one instance, and moving in modern times websites. So taking account of all those, so we've got eight Ds of navigation. None of them are kind of universal, are adopted universally. So if we pick the first 5, so direction and distance appear in all 8. Description appears in 7, duration 6, destination 5, and then we've got danger. Not sure why we need danger, because if we do, why are we actually doing that activity? But the problem there, if you're just choosing the first 5 highest, is it doesn't look, none of them look at where you are, and that's the detection part. Okay, so can we use dual coding to assist learners? One D's of learning that I kind of produced, going very quickly, is from Kate Jeffrey, Professor Kate Jeffrey, who's a member of the navigation. There was an article in Navigation News called Navigation Experts in a Brain, and she devised the 4 areas. So a compass to indicate direction, position, estimate how to measure distance travel, and a representation of the map where the goal is located. So kind of transferring these and putting them in a kind of order, where you're starting from, where you're heading to, which way you're going, and how far you're going to travel. And this is kind of developing concepts for land navigation. And from this, I devised concepts and critical characteristics, and I actually worked with a group of students to put this one forward to see if it could be used as a kind of teaching aid. And yes, it could. And so we've got position estimate, detection, where it's represented on the map, destination, direction, and distance. So this we've got the 4 Ds of navigation. And here is a graphic organizer, not only showing the concept, but also the characteristics, okay, and how those characteristics came about to support the concept. So there's one use of a graphic organizer. Can you hold that in your mind? To be perfectly honest, it might be okay as a theory training aid, but being outdoors, it might have one too many Ds. Right, so now we're moving on to orienteering, and we've got traffic light orienteering. So what we've got here is a massive block of text. So this is highlighted to produce cognitive overload, and you're just thinking, how can I kind of memorize all of this? So what British orienteering did in the 70s was looking at colour to sort out how to aid training. And so they came out with this kind of system, traffic light orienteering. So basically, these 3 areas here are a graphic representation of the text that you saw in the previous slide. And so you've got fast, slow, slower. So basically, the fast bit is the major part of the route. Yeah. Then before you hit the control site, this is your destination. You then slow down and make sure you're using precision navigation there. So in fast, it's rough navigation. In slow, it's precision navigation to your attack point. And then from your attack point, you move slow, perhaps to a walk, and then you go carefully into the control. And this has been around since the mid to late 1970s. But when British orienteering modernised, they got rid of a lot of black and white training manuals and then started utilising colour. Now, what we've got there is kind of rule of 3. So the rules of 3 is navigation. Can we adopt the fast, slow, slower kind of thing into general navigation? And the answer is yes, it's a possibility. So there we've got the text, which again could cause cognitive overload. And then we've got what traffic light navigating is. So, and then we basically using some of the remit within orienteering techniques. Okay, so in this case, attack, collect, and catch. And it can underpin with some of the D's of navigation. So underpinning attack and collect, you've got destination, direction, and description. But I think attack, collect, and catch is a more, pardon the expression, catchy area rather than destination, direction, description. And then when we look at the rule of 3, when we crossing the road, when we were kids, we looked at stop, look, and listen. When we learned to drive, I can remember position, speed, look, mirror, signal, maneuver. And then we were in COVID, we had hands, face, space. And there was a very famous Jaguar advert from the 1950s that had grace, space, and pace. And so it aids memory, aids recall without reverting to a whole load of text. And here's some further examples using graphic organisers. So here, this is a BTEC, it's unit 35, and it's about map reading by map and compass. And there's a lot of information there. And basically it's how do you use a map and how do you use a compass. Then it's putting all those together in planning a route and putting a route card together. And then it's so number 4, the bottom kind of rows, it's putting that route into action and also reviewing your activity. So that's pretty useful there. Can we use a graphic organizer to support that? Well, some teachers will know you can have a topic sequence diagram, and there you have all those. And so the bland bit is like September, October. The do bit is October, November, and then we review in December, January. So all the elements of the table are put into that topic sequence diagram to help you deliver. And also you could, this is a version that you could provide to students to help them understand where each of the elements fit in. Another one is graphic organizer is the fishbone diagram. And I think this is useful for supporting a risk assessment because it's got all elements there of a risk assessment, but it's in a graphic form. And again, it helps you to organize the activity, and it helps students to think, well, hang on a minute, what do I need before I go out on this adventure walk? What do I need? So you've got the group, you've got equipment, you've got the resources, you've got the environment. That's the cause, and then the effect is we are going to be taking part in that activity. Another form, okay, may not come up very good, but this is the South Notts 100k route, and this is part of that route, so the first section. And here it has a map, representation, Ordnance Survey map, and then it has the words to go with it, you know, to help you support. And a lot of guidebooks have this kind of order, so it's there to support the map reading by providing instructions. This is a route card. I don't go over the top of route card. For me, timing is an essential element of navigation, and therefore my route cards is about time. So how can you utilize graphics to support recall and orienteering techniques? And basically the next set of images were in one of the articles that I published in the Voice Navigation News. And you've got the text. So here is an attack point. You know, what is an attack point? So you've got the definition of attack point. And then you've got how to put it into place. Okay. But would the students or novice be able to understand all that? So if you give them a graphic, that kind of supports. So basically you've got 2 routes. If you use the route in red, there's a possibility of overshooting control point, in this case number 27. So why don't you use the information that's provided on the map, interpret it accurately. So use the green route. So follow those green dotted line until you get to the attack point. The attack point is a wall or fence corner with a forest. And from that attack point, you can use a compass bearing, and the compass bearing would be far more accurate in that shorter distance than what it would have been in the red distance. And that's just highlighting the fact that using an attack point as a technique. Right, aiming off. Again, there's a whole lot of information there, but when you break it down and put it into a graphic, that's basically what it is. And you know, you can see a bridge over a river. Perhaps what if this river's in Spain, you know, somewhere in Scotland or Lake District, when it's in a condition, but you need to head over that bridge. If you're using a line B, a compass bearing, because there could be mist or whatever, low cloud, and it's obscuring your view, and you have a compass bearing, you could not hit the bridge first time. So here we're aiming off. Use a Y, so you can have a compass bearing that goes, in this case, to the right-hand side of the bridge, and then you use the river as a handrail feature, and then you will finally get to the bridge And here's another signal of aiming off. The red line there was a footpath obscured by crocs. And so the aiming off here didn't really need compass bearings because it was summertime. It was blue skies, etc., etc. And so it was just finding a way. There was a tractor track that headed to the green solid line, and then I used that. That's a hedgerow. Then I used that to navigate to the exit point, which was a bridge from the point there where the walker in blue. That was obstructed because there's no sign there, and the bridge kind of blended into the hedge. So there's another example of how to use aiming off. So handrail features, again, you've got the text. How can you put it into a graphic? So here you've got handrail features, and you've got examples of what handrail features are. So a path, a fence, a stream, and in orienteering maps, it's likely that you're going to have a vegetation boundary. What does a vegetation boundary look like? It looks like that. So it could be different species of trees. It could be a vegetation boundary between coniferous trees and deciduous trees, or kind of rough land and kind of land grass. So it gives you that opportunity to use that as a handrail feature. And collective features, again, you've got the text. So once they've read that, how can I kind of record information? We can use a graphic. And so basically collecting features as you move in along this red line. There's no footpath, etc. here. This is going through the terrain. If you go in the right direction, you're picking up these collective features. So the first one, A, you're crossing over a path junction. The next one, B, is a knoll, okay, which you can see. In the orienteering maps, white is open runnable woodland, whereas obviously in a Ordnance Survey map, it's going to be a woodland, is going to be a green colour. And then you C is a vegetation boundary. We've got rough grass, open area within the wood, and that you can be able to identify that. And then your final collecting feature is a pond at point D. And then catching features, what are they? We kind of use those as a safety in the elements are free in navigating. So again, there's a text, and then you've got catching features. What if you overshoot the control, which is the null at number 14? Quite easy to do. You overshoot and your catching feature. So this is where you can be safe, is this wall, which encloses woodland. And here you've got coniferous woodlands on the right-hand side and deciduous woodland on the left. And you've got a vegetation boundary between the two. So it's a matter of overlooking the wall, getting to that point A, and then that's again an attack point, and they can use that to get back to your control. Right, so not far off from the end of the presentation. So in teaching, Solomon 1987, there's a need of 3 types of knowledge. So content knowledge, so knowledge of the subject matter to be taught, yeah, and then pedagogical knowledge of how to teach in general terms, and then finally, pedagogical content knowledge of how to teach that is specific to what is being taught. So, okay, so can you be an expert teacher with one of these knowledge areas missing? And then kind of finally, what is knowledge? That's the thing there. And my take is the ability to record information resorting to searching on the internet. So hopefully, that gives a rundown of what dual coding theory is. So it's looking at a variety of information to help the student to recognize and recall information. And that cognitive load theory, it's kind of thinking about, okay, how can we mitigate against overloading working memory and supporting use of visuals to help long-term memory, and then we can transfer that to working memory and therefore mitigate overworking of that particular area. So thanks so much, Claire. So it's over to yourself.